Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is the 58 Keys Script Book Club. The best scripts that I've been reading, plus, because I can't ever resist it, maybe an old favourite. So, and actually, as soon as we get this going properly, scripts that you recommend to me too. That's the way this should be. This is the first one, and actually it's free, fully intended to tantalise you into subscribing with YouTube memberships to keep watching each new one, which comes out every Friday from now on. I hope it's useful to you. I mean, I love, I was going to say love, yeah, it's not too strong a word. I love reading scripts, and that's scripts across television, my particular favourite, but also film, radio, theatre, all of it. First up, actually, is a film, Conclave, by Peter Strawn, based on the book by Robert Harris. I think this is a particularly good one for us to start with. Well, because it's superb, really, that should be enough. But also, it has just won the Best Adapted Screenplay Oscar. And because you need to grab it right now. There is a link to download it in the description, and I hope it lasts. But the thing with films like this, if you are remotely interested in reading the script, download a copy the instant you learn it's available, because it's not going to be. It's going to vanish again. Around award season, actually specifically Oscar award season, studios put out their screenplays online for free for anyone to look at, anyone to read, but then they take them down again. They always take them down again afterwards, but sometimes it's like they change their mind along the way. I mean, the script of the new Bob Dylan film, for example, A Complete Unknown, with that legitimately freely available online for a while, and then it wasn't. And then it was again. It is always like this, though. So actually, while you watch this, go download Conclave. Conclave. The Pope has died. The Catholic Church has to appoint a successor. It's a bit tricky. That's it, really. That is Conclave. But it's the way it's told. It is about the choice of the next Pope, but it's really, I think it's really about people and pressure and desire and power and faith and actually secrecy. I have no faith myself, no religion, but yeah, I do know the process of appointing the next pope. It's that thing where, isn't it? It involves smoke signals from the Vatican, black for no decision yet, white for yeah, sorted, got it. And also I know that the whole thing is completely, deeply secret. I don't know whether Conclave gets it right. I don't actually have one thin clue whether this is actually all really how this decision is made. But what matters to me is that this script, the writing in this script, creates a whole and believable world in which to have characters in this situation, yeah, but also professing the love of God while really, and actually not always as hypocritically as this is going to sound, positioning themselves for power, jockeying for influence. And these are also characters who are fully invested in this particular special world, which I think means as a writer, there's a problem of how to deal with the perceptions that the audience can bring to the film. Perceptions audience have, but the characters don't. For instance, the Catholic Church's attitude to women. The Church's appalling record of covering up, well, let's just say covering up all sorts of things. The script pulls this off perfectly, I think. Actually, look at this. One character gets to bombast about paedophile accusations, and Lawrence, the main character, just gets to say, will not be attending. An enormous, just enormous topic addressed completely in those 4 words. Now, whether you agree with Lawrence, whether you agree with how the Catholic Church is dealing with its scandals or not, whether you have faith in any sense for it or not, I suppose, for these characters in this situation, a massive issue has not been ignored by the screenplay, but it has also not seen the story contrived to include or exclude it. The screenplay does judge, I think, actually, but it doesn't judge overtly. The judgment over the church is not the story, and if the screenplay had made judgment more prominent, that would feel to me, I think, like the author speaking instead of these characters. So it would be polemic. Actually, it would be polemic disguised as exposition. It'd be rubbish. Instead, will not be attending. tells us Lawrence's opinion of this fellow who's been excluded. It tells us all sorts of things. It tells us Lawrence's opinion of the topic, actually, that in that context it is conveyed. He believes the church must deal with it. And it does so without these two characters telling each other things that they would already know. It drives me spare, that does. Actually, not only know things, it doesn't have them saying things they wouldn't be thinking of at this point in that situation. And the script is replete with this kind of deftness, and I admire it for that. But the thing is, above all else, for me, above all else, it's such a compelling read. I was going to say I don't care about form or technique or anything technical. Well, I really do. It's just the script needs to hold me whatever it does, and this is 129 pages or so. Read in one go. Howl's You screenplay script. A really just good read, and that's all I ever want. Except, it's also, I want to talk to you about it because I think there's something I didn't get when I was reading the script. So something I missed completely. And it was that Lawrence, the lead character, actually doesn't say a lot. I saw an interview with the actors who were talking about it, and the claim was something like he had the fewest lines of dialogue, and I'm not really sure about that because there are so many characters. Maybe he did have the fewest, but I don't think any of them got the bulk of lines. And actually, Lawrence does get important speeches. In fact, at one quite early point, literally an important speech at the podium and everything. But it is true. I missed this until the actors were saying it. This character listens more than he speaks. And I think the reason I just didn't appreciate that was because Lawrence pervades the script. It's not really about him, and yet really it is. If you haven't already, do read the screenplay to Conclave by Peter Strawn, and we can talk about it in the comments below. That would be a good thing, wouldn't it? The whole point of this is scripts, discussing them, writer to writer. One important thing, there is a link to in the description to the online PDF copy that I read, and like I say, if you are at all interested, or if you even think that one day you might be vaguely intrigued, download it right now, because it will not be there, maybe even tomorrow. Online PDFs are the best way, I think, to read scripts. I mean, they're much better than script books. I don't mean that because they're free. That's the obvious thing. Usually they are, actually, but in the last couple of years, I've probably spent a couple £100 buying PDF scripts and things. Yeah, I wish I hadn't thought of that. The thing is, what you get with a PDF is the script as written by the writer. Well, actually, I mean, you get the same thing with paper as well, which is okay. As handed to the cast and crew. Script books, with some important exceptions that doubtlessly will come up, they are not what the writer wrote or the cast or crew worked from, not quite. They might be very close, but they might not. For example, they very nearly always, very, very nearly always get reformatted to get more words on the page to make the book shorter and cheaper to print, because you don't sell a lot of screenplays, you need them cheaper. And they can also tend to leave out things that weren't filmed, so, you know, deleted scenes and lines. Sometimes they're actually just transcripts of the final film. There are people in this world who will slavishly type out every word spoken in a film or a TV show, and I suppose you have to admire the effort, although somebody should tell them AI will do the transcription for you in moments. Now, but these transcriptions, they are an affront to us as writers, because they have every word, but not even who said each word. No description, no scene headings, no character names. I mean, if that is your thing, if you want to spend your time typing all of that out, well, I suppose you do you. But some of these bastards put out this unreadable nonsense online and claim that it is the script. When you search for a script, include the term PDF. I don't know why, but it seems to cut out most of this nonsense. And also, yeah, when you're reading it, the first page does not begin with something like int or ext for interior or exterior. If there aren't character names, just stop reading. Stop wasting your time. Slightly strident there, but I mean this. There is actually one exception. I love this. In the whole of the internet, right, there's one exception to this that I found so far anyway. There's a fan website for the British television show UFO where they actually say it's a transcript, but what they mean is that they have taken the original typed manuscript and retyped it, transcribed it properly. That's great, actually, although, wow, UFO? 1970s and so of its time. You can't believe adults stood there and said some of this stuff. Or that we watched, actually. Anyway, transcripts, usually abhorrent. Script books, if that's all you can get, fine. I have hundreds of script books, but online scripts are infinitely better. Just having them on A4 or US letter, you get the writer's pacing and rhythm as you read, instead of the text all squashed up on the page. But there is a published paperback copy of the script to Conclave, and I will not link to it. In any other case, I would. Published book of the script, of course, I'll give you a link for it. But this time, I'm just too suspicious. No, big deal. Obviously, you can search Amazon for it as easily as I did. So if you want to go have a look for Conclave on Amazon, and you will find it there. But when I tried, just before we started talking, I found a book of the screenplay, and it was credited to the wrong writer. And this wrong writer happens to be credited on the published screenplays of very many recent high-profile movies. Now, I don't know, and I cannot prove this, and I'm going to say allegedly a lot. It looks like, allegedly, this individual has taken the same free online screenplay that you and I can and published it in paperback. That is making money out of someone else's work. I suppose actually you can argue that you remember the future editions of this are going to be YouTube membership videos. So I'm making, I hope I'm bringing you something useful instead of just copying what a writer's already done. I mean, I know, for example, I'm not just reading out the screenplay, although that is sometimes so tempting. Okay, I need something lighter. That's Conclave, that's transcripts. And let's do Malcolm in the Middle, Season 1, Episode 2, Red Dress by Al Higgins. Malcolm in the Middle is an American sitcom, if you don't happen to know, because I knew the name, but I hadn't seen it before. I hadn't seen it before I read a few of these scripts, and actually it's very good. It's also a half-hour show, which means the script runs to about 40 pages. I read at least one script every day. I mean, well, definitely to learn from them. Of course, I'm a writer, but also just because I relish it. Just sometimes, if the day is busy, I will find a short one to read, and that is what happened here. It was short. I thought I'd just try it, and as it happened, I really like it, or I wouldn't be talking to you. Actually, yeah, give me a break here. There are also 10-minute scripts to Danger Mouse available online, and I have sometimes read those, but then they're really good. Danger Mouse is great. Malcolm in the Middle, Red Dress. In a 22 or 23-minute running time, they're still called half-hour sitcoms, even as, the amount of space adverts take up has eaten away at the running time over the years. This episode of this show sets up a war between a mother and her children over who has ruined her new red dress. Now, slightly unsatisfactory, the dress is a MacGuffin. It's a thing all the characters are looking for or referring to, or it's the reason for what they did, but it isn't really the story. The story is the battlefield and each side trying to outmaneuver each other. The comedy, I think, it's in the escalation. And what is so good about it is the way it ramps from just nothing, happy sitcom land, to a war. It's a land war in this house. It just, I gotta say, the script then ends very abruptly. In fact, the script ends abruptly enough that I went off and watched the episode to see, did it play out differently? Most US sitcoms, for example, the scripts have a tag, a short final scene, and quite often they're missing from the scripts that are available online because they've been written later or written by the showrunner. Community Season 1, all of the tags were done in one go later, and this script had no tag, but nor did the finished show. There was actually a better opening gag in the aired edition than on the page, but otherwise the episode as aired follows the script. And I cannot be alone in finding its ending abrupt, because I started to do a Google search for who burned the red dress, and it auto-completed in Malcolm in the Middle. Red Dress, Season 1, Episode 2 of Malcolm in the Middle. It is available to read online. A link in the description below, as there always will be. Now, Conclave and Malcolm in the Middle, Red Dress. I think they're the two best scripts out of the 8 or 10 I read this week, something like that. But I want to include an old favourite as well. And I tell you, there is so much to say about this one. Yeah, do you know, it might be quicker if you just go read it instead of listening to me. So I'll tell you right now. The script is called 33. It's the first episode proper of Battlestar Galactica. Now, as ever, right, I wouldn't be talking to you about it if I didn't think it was just great and such a good read on the page. Except actually, just for this once, I might talk to you about it anyway because of how it's been written. It's been written so differently to the rest. Follow. Battlestar Galactica was originally a 1978 knockoff of Star Wars. It was. Then in late 2003, it was remade as a two-part mini-series that aired, one night after another. The script for that actually leaked out early, and this is one time when I know I was just wrong about something. I think because I read it picturing the quite familiar to me style and tone of the 70s show, I didn't get it from the page how shockingly different it was. I remember now actually thinking about the actors who'd been hired. Some of them, I heard the story that they'd originally ignored it because, they remembered Battlestar Galactica and not going to do any of that stuff. And then, their agents and producers talked them into reading it, and then it's like, oh, get it now. They want these roles in this thing because this new remake, they knew what this remake was really about. And I didn't. And so I read that script, the two-part miniseries, and I think, I shrugged. Months later, I'm working in London at Radio Times as the UK's equivalent of TV Guide, and it's a Friday. I'm heading home to where I live in Birmingham. I've got nothing to read, nothing to watch on the journey. But on the desk at Radio Times, there was a DVD of Night 1 of the two-part Battlestar Galactica miniseries. And all these years later, I can remember visually even remember getting off the coach at home and being so mad that I hadn't brought Night 2, because Night 1 was so good and it was going to be days before I was back in London to get it. Now, that was the miniseries, right? And that script is credited to Ronald D. Moore and Christopher Eric James, based on a screenplay by Glenn A. Larson. There is no such person as Christopher Eric James. It was entirely a contractual demand that this name be given co-writing credit with Ron Moore. Christopher Eric James was really Glenn A. Larson. Now, I know this because I interviewed Ron Moore around about the time. So it was after the mini-series had aired, but before the following series began, before 33 came out. I think actually he liked that I asked about this credit. I think he liked that I'd been suspicious of this other name with no other credits, and I am certain that he enjoyed telling me that no, he'd written every single word by himself. But he also definitely thought I was an idiot. I could see it in his eyes. Because having seen these two feature-length miniseries episodes, right, one of my questions to him was it possible to keep up that standard, that tension in a continuing 1 hour show? I mean, ad breaks and stuff like this, shorter than an hour. And it was stupid of me because Moore by then had been writing 1 hour episode television for at least a decade. I mean, I still think I had a point. I just think I really learned I was wrong when I saw 33. Finally, he gets to 33. So 33, after all this, it's the first episode after the miniseries. It's the first episode of the first season of Battlestar Galactica, the remake. But it is different to every one of the 72 episodes that followed because it was written differently. Here is a US 1 hour drama, and the series that ran for years, and this one script, 33, was the only one not worked out at all in a writer's room. It was not rewritten in a writer's room. It was Ronald D. Moore writing just to see what happened next. Now, I'm actually not sure now after all this time whether he said he didn't even have an outline or something, but it was unquestionably more free in its writing than anything else around it. Not just the rest of Battlestar, but any other series at the time. And there's a reason. Night 1, okay, the miniseries did well, and so after Night 2 aired, all eyes were on what the overnight ratings were, because without exception, the second night of anything has lower ratings than the first. I mean, people will have tried the first one and some won't have enjoyed it, so they won't come back. They just weren't interested enough to return for more. So without question, there would be a drop. The question was, how much would the drop be? How much lower would the ratings go? As strong as Night 1's ratings had been, whether there would be a series following depended on Night 2 not sinking too much lower. It didn't sink too much lower. It rose. Now, without exception, second night ratings are lower than the first, but here was an exception. And the second he knew that, the second he knew the numbers actually went up, Moore also knew there's going to be a series here. So forget negotiations, which obviously then took place, forget any plans that must have been ongoing. With numbers like that, he was getting a series. There was just this issue of having to wait for that to be confirmed, and as it happened, that confirmation was after a Christmas break. So even if people wanted to be quick and get to series, they couldn't. Christmas, all that stuff. But over that Christmas, apparently Moore wrote 33. He just wrote it. And it's gorgeous. It is a marvellous piece of writing. It breaks some rules, actually. Like the way US television, at least at the time, characters had to be shiny teeth, handsome or beautiful. They have to be toned and fit and at the top of their game. In 33, almost every character is instead smashed, broken them. Some of them actually just look awful. And it's because of where the story goes. The characters did this because the story needed to go that way. The mini-series ended with, well, it's going to sound silly summarising it, but billions of people dead. Okay, that took a while longer to say in the story. A few thousand escaping. 33 opens with them all escaping, still being pursued by this enemy, the Cylons. The Cylons have been coming, though, over and over again. From immediately after the events of the miniseries, these Cylons have been attacking this fleet and the Battlestar every 33 minutes for 5 days. You join these characters at their absolute lowest, and it's fantastic. I said that the characters look bad. I mean, 5 days. Watch the show. They really do. But the thing is, you get that on the page as well. It's right there on the page how these people are suffering, and the intensity of it is just mesmerizing. I wish I'd written it. Actually, one more thing. Yeah, you can see my mind working here. Look at this bit of the page. Okay, there's a journey from the page and the screen, and of course there are changes on the way, and here's one. And I really want to tell you about this. In 33, sorry to spoil this, there comes a point when the heroes have to destroy a ship. Right, in all practical and pragmatic ways, in all ways except morally, there's no question this must be done. But in the script, there are passengers on that ship. There are 1,200 people who will die if the characters do what we have at least been led to believe they must do. Now, if you watch the aired version of 33, but you don't watch too closely, you'll see that there's at least a suggestion that in fact now it's fine, it's okay, the ship is empty. I believe I'm remembering this correctly. I think that was actually network requirement that the heroes do not kill 1,000 innocent people. You can see their point. Really, you can see why they would demand that. But as I say, in the script, there are all of these people on there. And actually, in the final episode, there is a small hint, a little visual dot is put in there, the smallest hint that in fact, yeah, the ship is full. I was wrong, right, to doubt whether Ron Moore could keep up with the tension and then the sheer high standard of the miniseries in this first 1 hour episode that followed. Just, in fact, as I was wrong when I read the miniseries script and just didn't really take to it. I'm actually oddly fine with being completely wrong because it means I get to now read this again and relish the script to 33 and go back to the miniseries. I should put a link to the miniseries as well and relish that too. And that's relish is why I want to do this with you. I've read scripts all my life, but for something like 6-7 years now, something like that, I have made certain to read at least one every day, and it is a joy. I hope that through this I can point you at more brilliant scripts in future YouTube membership videos, and that you can point me at some as well. But for now, that's it for this first ever edition of the 58 Keys Script Club. Thank you very much for watching. Go download those scripts right now while they're still available. Read more. Take care of yourself. Write more as well. We are writers. Write more. And I'll see you soon.